course, it's Michelle Waterson. We were actually just talking about sports broadcasting.
Yeah.
And how difficult it is. Like, you and I can talk fights all day long. It's just you and I just having fights. We'll have our disagreements. We'll have our agreements, but it's totally fine. But then sitting behind that desk, microphone, makeup on, hair did, all of a sudden you're like, what do I say?
Yeah. And the camera's staring right at you, and the cameraman's pointing at it like, talk. Can't say anything.
Did they put an earpiece? Did you have an earpiece in?
I think that's another thing that made it a bit difficult, because when I'm sitting at the desk, and well, for one, I'm like sitting at the desk with Rashad Evans, who's like a big brother to me, and Tyron Woodley, and so these guys are like big dog, like they're the OGs to me, and I look up to them, and so sitting at the desk with them and talking fights is kind of like, do I even belong here? Is one thing. And then so I'm trying to really listen and want to give good input back. And while I'm listening, the director's in my ear saying, like, trying to cue me for when to go. So there's just so many things going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, it is nerve-wracking the first time I had an IFB and the earpiece in. And they would talk, well, I'm talking, there's talking in my ear, and you have to like really learn how not to listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
Or even worse is when they're trying to pitch, like later on, you don't have it so much right now, but like Dominic Cruz gets it a lot, and Rashad and Tyron obviously get a lot because they're on TV all the time. You're talking, and they're talking to you as you're talking, and they're telling you to pitch to a package. They're telling you to pitch to something else, and you're like, oh, okay, because originally the game plan was I'm supposed to pitch to Michelle. Now all of a sudden, I got to pitch to Justin Gaethje. And it's like, oh, okay, I got to switch up, and so you got to listen while you're talking. I could never pull that together. I always would be like, huh? What? Live on the air. Like, what? Oh, yeah. Pitching now going. I'm like, I was the worst at that. It's so hard to get used to that kind of concept. Is that something you want to do once your fighting game is done and you want to get in there and be in front of the TV?
I would love to. Martial arts will always be a part of my life, and being able to break it down and study it would continue my education in martial arts, I think. I feel like when I first got into it and I've done a couple of shows, having the ability to sit next to Bisping and Rashad and Tyron, Dominic Cruz, it's crazy to think about it, but sometimes, as a fighter, you become like very narrow-minded and you only study the people that are in your weight class. But when you become an analyst, you have to study everybody, and you start to pick up like the rhythms and patterns and the evolution of the entire sport, or just, for me, I feel like MMA evolves in patterns, and when you have to study all the fighters all at once, you kind of pick up on those patterns, and I think it helps you as a fighter.
It really does. And really what we're doing in MMA is you're playing human chess, and you're trying to make people do things they don't necessarily want to do, but making them think they're doing it on purpose. Like I want them to go against the cage, so I'm going to force them against the cage because I know as soon as I put them against the cage, they're going to shoot. I'm going to throw an uppercut. I'm going to throw a head kick, and I'm going to attack them. And that's just what was going to happen. And it is. The more you look at fights, different bodies, different body types, you do learn a lot more. You absolutely learn a lot more. And has that helped you with this training camp, that kind of mindset now? Like, it's not just my weight class or just my opponent. I've got to look at other fighters now as well?
I do. My husband, he's, old school boxer. I want to say old school, but he likes to watch, a lot of the boxers, they watch tons of tape. And so we watch tape on boxers. We watch tape on like male fighters. We don't just watch tape. I don't just watch tape on Cortney Casey. Of course, I have watched tape on her, but we're watching tape on Khabib. We're watching tape on Golovkin, Canelo. We're watching tape on Mighty Mouse. We're watching tape, and just trying to become inspired, really.
Yeah, but even in this game for a long time, even a martial artist, pretty much your whole life. So how much more inspiration do you need? If you weren't fighting, you'd still be in the gym working out. You're not like one of those people that I'm only working out because I'm a fighter. You work out all the time anyway, which is how you became a fighter. Like it's just, so how much motivation do you actually need with your husband and your daughter? You're like, do you really need more motivation than watching these other fighters to get inspired? Or are you kind of already inspired when you're watching them looking for a new technique that you're going to be able to use?
Yeah, I think that might be what it is. And maybe part of it is that I'm a visual learner, So when I'm, sometimes I can get stuck in a rut. And honestly, I feel that a bit of what happened in my fight against Tisha, I was stuck in a rut. It was like I couldn't pull myself off that track. Okay. And so sometimes just watching other fighters and seeing them flow and being able to visualize myself doing it helps me just break free of that monotony that sometimes I get stuck in.
At 14-6, you just talked about Tisha. This is the first time you're in a 2-fight losing skid. Like you've never in your career, you've lost a couple, but you've never done them back to back. It's always been, and not just like one fight in between, like a large separation in between before your next loss. Rose obviously is the champ now. You lost to her. Makes sense. She's the champ. Okay, that kind of makes sense. I kind of thought the height difference and your length was going to help you against Torres. Obviously, it didn't work out that way. Was that the rut that you were stuck in, that you just weren't getting enough space, or was there some other rut that you were caught in trying to get around on that one fight?
I think the rut was that my stubbornness. I wanted to match her strength. I just wanted to see, like, yeah, I can match it. Like, I can stand toe to toe with you and match your strength, but that was playing into her game. And instead of using my karate, using my speed, using my mobility, and using using the entire cage, I stood right in front of her and traded with her. And I know it was a close fight, but I didn't have to allow it to be, and I did. And you live and you learn, I guess. You've
learned a lot over the last little bit. You actually, and it's weird. Like I said, you've been in the sport a long time, you've been in martial arts for a long time, but you seem to keep learning, and part of it's the tape watching with you and your husband, and part of it is getting ready for fights and always being in that game. Are you always someone that's always looking to learn? Like every morning you're trying to get up and learn something new? Is that kind of how you approach your life? Because there's people out there that are like, I haven't been in school in 30 years, but every day I learn something new. I don't care if it's a word or a new way to do something or whatever, I'm learning something new. And is that where you are?
Yeah, I love learning new stuff. When I go on my runs sometimes, like listening on my commutes, I listen to podcasts and stuff. But I also have to force myself to rein it back, because sometimes I can put too much on my plate, and I want to learn everything all at once. And I really have to force myself to really not allow myself to get distracted, and zone in on the important things.
So my wife was stalking you on Instagram a few weeks ago, and as we do with all fighters, we stalk everybody. She was saying, like, wow, like Michelle looks really like in really good shape, like this far out from her actually having to make weight. Are you in better shape than before at the same time at training camp?
I feel like this time around, when I say I have to say my husband, because he's forced me to take recovery.
Oh, we know. We know what's going on.
I will run myself to the ground, and I think that if in my last fight, I felt like if I didn't run myself to the ground, and if I didn't feel like crap at the end of the night, then I wasn't working hard enough. And it shouldn't be like that, because then you're working backwards. And I would show up to practice already fatigued because my body didn't have any time to recover. And so this time around, I think just really being smart with it, giving myself permission to recover, and knowing that recovery is just as important as training is. And like hard training sessions don't mean nothing if you're only able to put 50% in.
Yeah, and if you're not recovered, then it's only 50%, and it is a difficult thing, and that's one of the things that's different from my generation of fighters to this generation of fighters, is that this generation is actually learning how to, I'm taking a half day off. Today I'm gonna take a day off. Like, I'm not feeling right, things are a little tweaked up, I'm gonna go and lay down, but I'm not laying in bed all day. But but I'm just not gonna go out there and get punched on and pulled on, and I'm gonna do something that I want to do. But it's gonna be active. It might be a hike, it might be a sauna workout, it might be something. But you're right, the recovery is a bigger deal. Is that something that's a lot different from the Torres fight and the Rose fight, or is it something that you've kind of been working on for a while?
I'd say this is probably the first time I've done it, and I think too maybe that I do kind of want to have that old school patch, like part of me wants to have the old school patch to say, yeah, like I grind it out, whatever, I can handle it. But the truth is like I have to fight smarter. I have to evolve with the sport, or I'm just going to fall behind.
I will tell you this, and I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit on my life. For a long time, I just did stunt training. I wasn't really hitting anybody. I was just doing near misses and stuff like that for film and television. I really wasn't working out on myself. I was just kind of trying to get prepared for film. Well, at 45 now, we've started working out every day, my wife and I. We do either together or apart. I teach wrestling still, and we have boxing, whatever. And a young buck comes in, and he's like, I want to do takedowns. I can grind it out all day long. I can go out. I can still bang my head, with the best of them. I can still shoot takedowns. I can still battle out. Now, if you're talking like a top level elite, top 3 in the world, no, I'm not. I can't hang with those guys. Beat the crap out of them. But the guys who come into my room, I can hang with them. And I'm telling you, that switch that you have to be able to grind it out, be able to do it all the time, you will always have that switch. That switch will be there when in your 50s. You're like, oh, okay, little girl, you want to go ahead and do some high kicks? Let's go high kicks. I'm ready. You want to go? You want to go strike? I'll go strike. Don't worry about it. Now, will you be ready to go again tomorrow? Absolutely not. But that moment in time, you are like, I got this. And for the next 25, 30 minutes, I am beating your ass. And then all of a sudden, you go home and you're in the car trying to start the key. You're like, oh my god, my shoulders hurt so bad. This is gonna suck tomorrow. My neck is already sore. I gotta hurt and get home before my neck freezes. From wrestling because you get pulled down so much. But that's gonna be that. Martial artists always have that ability to go jump and do it. I mean, Chuck Norris still has it.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's something that you have to go through in your career? Like in order to get to a place where you can take rest days, do you feel like when you first start fighting that you have to go through the trenches and you have to go through the grind?
I'm old as shit. So as a result, I come from that old mindset of, no, we were taught the way that we were taught from when I was 6 years old until I retired from wrestling in 2000. Mine was harder, more, and faster was the only directions we got. Do it harder, do it more, do it faster. And then, okay, we'll see you again at noon. Let's do it again. Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll see you at 4 o'clock. Let's do it again. You're like, geez, man. And then, but now, even wrestling in college has changed. Even wrestling at the world level has changed. Fighting has changed. It's much more scientific. Every camp now, you probably, let me think. Your first fight was back in 2007, so you probably do remember when it was basically you had one coach or two coaches, and that was it. Now everybody seems to have like 6 or 7 coaches. I have my nutritionist who's now an official coach. I have my strength and conditioning coach. I've got my movement coach. I've got my kicking coach. I've got my striking coach. I've got my grappling coach. I've got my wrestling coach. I've got my stretching coach. You're like, what the hell, man? Like, what's... Yeah. And I'm making fun of it, but the reality of it is prime time me versus prime time these guys today, I can't compete. The skill level that we had... George St. Pierre is the only one that is like the separate, and Robbie Lawler the only ones that are separate. Like those guys they've got a different gene in them someplace. Like they're just a separate kind of character. The majority of people that fought in my era cannot compete with the guys that fight today. Yeah, we think we can. We'll talk about we can. We'll boost ourselves up and get in there. But a fight comes down to a fight, we're not catching them. Our primetime me is not catching up with that. It was just better. It's just better all the way around. Do you feel like that's true? Or do you feel like that I'm just talking out of my ass?
I do think there's an evolution, and I even see it when I go and like I was just at the Honor Invitational commentating, and there were these 10-year-old kids pulling off submissions that would take me years to learn, and they're already evolving at that young of an age, and I can only imagine how good they're going to be with their skill set when they become adults.
People don't understand that the sport is still evolving. It's not like football. It's been around, since the 20s. It's not like boxing. It's been around since the turn of the century. Or boxing right now, I think, is 115 years old underneath the new Queensberry's rules, and they still have rule changes, weight changes, and weight class and all that stuff. We're going through all that stuff ourselves, and there's still going to be rule changes. All of a sudden now you can grab the clavicle again. A downed opponent in some states are 2 hands down instead of 1 hand down. Like it evolves, it changes, and that evolves and changes the kids too. Remember when no one was throwing a front kick? Then all of a sudden, Leona Machida and Anderson Silva knocked some guys out with some front kicks. Now everybody's throwing a front kick.
Yeah.
And don't forget Steven Seagal invented the front kick, just in case you forgot. I just want to make sure you knew that. I know.
You got to give him credit. You got
He wrote it. He said it, and he never backed down. Not one time did he back off. He think, nope, I invented that damn, and just kept running with it. Okay, all right, whatever. So let's talk about Cortney Casey. Casey Sanchez. Yeah, she's a hyphenated name. You got to say both. First, I know it doesn't. It doesn't matter. What do you think of her? First time you started watching tape, first phone call, like, hey, look, this is who you're going to fight. You've said yes. What were your initial thoughts?
We're excited. Something completely different from Tecia Torres. But she was on the same fight card as me, so we both have the same amount of time to recover, same amount of time to go into camp. I had the ability to talk to her for a bit after the fight. She seemed like a very nice, down-to-earth person. She is one of the taller girls in the division. She likes to stand and bang. She's a counter fighter. And she's tall.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to utilizing some of the things that I've been working on in this camp against her.
Did you have to bring somebody in special for that height and for the fact that she is a counter fighter? She's not aggressive. She waits for you to kind of shoot and comes right over the top. Did you have to bring somebody special in for that?
No, I have a lot of tall teammates that can emulate her. Obviously Holly, she's a taller girl. She does fight southpaw, but she can sit back and use her length. And if I can take angles and move around Holly, then it gives me a bit more confidence.
Yeah, and Holly's not too shabby. If you're moving around here, you're doing okay. You're doing all right. So how is it over there right now? You're still at Winkle and Jackson's, right? You're still at Jackson's.
Yeah.
How is it over there? Is it always seems like we don't hear anything about it until one of the guys coming out of there is in a championship fight. Then everyone's talking about him again. But it's like it's always in the back of everybody's mind. Like, oh, geez, it's like a great camp down there. Is it still? It
is a great camp. Okay. It really is. Everybody, it's crazy because we all, the group that I kind of grew up with training with have all become a bit older. Ray Borg just had his kid. Donald's getting ready to have a kid. Little John so we're all like growing up. Yeah. We're not the little kids anymore. So it's crazy to me that now we're kind of like the veterans in the gym, whereas before it was Rashad and GSP and Joy Villasenor and Keith Jardine. Like those are the guys that we would sit around and just listen to them chit chat, and now it's us sitting around and the amateur team like listening to us tell stories. So it's kind of cool to see the shift in that sense.
Yeah.
We got a really, really good amateur team that Joy Villasenor is the head coach of, and they step in and he kind of dictates whether they can come into pro class or not, and we have a good group of girls, and everybody's just kind of I was just talking to Lando or Groovy Lando Venati, and he was telling, and it's the same vibe for everybody that's been there long enough. It's kind of like it's your second home, when you feel like you're just stuck, or you need to go somewhere, you need to talk to somebody, or even not talk to anybody, but just be someplace where you can just breathe and be yourself. That's the gym. You go to the gym.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, you don't have to worry about doing reports and doing interviews and trying to be that I'm on today. I got to be ready for this. Like that whole game. When you get to the gym, if you're having a bad day, you can have a bad day. If you're not feeling well, you can. I just don't feel well, and it's okay to say it to your teammates. It's definitely not okay to say it out in public, because that gets back and it gets construed and gets turned into something else that's not. It's a whole game. Yeah, I get that. Okay. So
yeah, and they understand.
So what do you think is going to happen with this Cortney fight? You see a finish happening. We all know that you're going to win. I mean, that's obvious. If I'm interviewing her, she's going to win too. It's just how it works. So how are you going to win the fight?
I'd like to finish a submission. Okay. I think that I know that she has some. I think she's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, but
sounds right. Yeah.
I know that she likes to stand and bang, and I'd like to take it to the ground and finish her with a submission. But if not, I think that I'll be able to neutralize her range with my karate kicks. I
like it. Michelle, thanks so much for coming on here. I appreciate it. I know it's tough, especially after training. You definitely don't want to sit down and do an interview. I appreciate you coming on here with us.
I always love doing interviews with you. So
thanks, hon.